real special video for you today. We're going to be installing the LS Fabrication Taillight fuel filler in my 1975 Squarebody. We're going to do this in real time, so we'll be experiencing it just like how you would be experiencing it. So let's get into the video. To begin, we got to remove this tail light. So let's take out the 4 screws and then the backing, and then we'll get a little bit further into it. Now let's remove this bucket. There's 4 screws here. Yours might be a little bit rusty. So a little tip is if you take your screwdriver and a hammer and give it a light little tap, you'll break that rust loose. I'm also going to take off this ground screw and this clip, and we're going to feed these lights down underneath so they're out of our way. Seeing as though they're at this point, let's go ahead and remove these factory clips and get them out of our way. This kit does require some cutting, so we've made some templates that you can lay on your taillight opening, and they'll be labeled driver's side, passenger side, and or inside outside. So you'll lay the template on this tab here so that it matches the profile top and bottom. And you take a marker and outline where you need trim. Now this is a painted truck, so I'm going to have to be extra careful not to damage the paint. With some patience, it can be done. And the same with the inside. Put it on these notches, all the factory holes line up. Go ahead and trim these tabs. So let's start cutting. My go-to tool for this install is going to be my air saw. With a nice sharp blade, you should easily be able to get into these tight places and cut metal. Or a good old zip disc does work as well. However, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to get in those tight areas. So again, be careful. Because I am cutting on this truck and accidents do happen, I'm going to tape the shit out of my paint. In case I slip, tape is cheap and paint is not. To clean up these sharp edges, you can do one of 2 things. You could use an angle grinder where you can fit in and just smooth off some of those burrs, or you can get an old trusty hand file. On these 2 little notches, I'm going to take a drill and drill right in the center of the notch, and then hopefully open it up with my air saw. I will admit the next part won't be easy. A person does have to remove enough material around this inner bucket so we have enough room for our assembly. So we'll get nice and flush with the bottom cross member, and we're going to remove all this material up here, flush with the opening, all the way down the inside here, and then again carry it on to the very bottom. So let's get creative and start cutting. So what I've been noticing is even though it may look like I'm hacking away at this, it does allow me to get my tool in tighter spots. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start just cutting away this material randomly so I can remove it, get better access, and then I can cut down a little bit deeper. This next one, we're gonna get real creative. We're gonna take the air line, feed it down into the stake pocket so I can get my tool right at the very base of the pocket. So now that we've removed the majority of the metal, we can come back in here and clean up all our sharp edges. I can take the flapper wheel or a grinding disc and clean that up. While I'm in here, I'm gonna open up this cross member by taking an air saw and cutting out the corner here. I don't like constraint, so by opening that up, it allows us to have lots of room for the fuel filler and the wiring harness. For what it's worth, let's get maximum clearance by removing this pocket here. So instead of that round hole, we're gonna make it square. I'm just gonna use a trusty die grinder to open that up. So there's a factory bolt right here that protrudes a little bit too far. You can do one of two things. You can either take a grinder and grind this flat, or you can remove the bolt, cut it, and then put it back in. I'm gonna take the die grinder and I'm gonna grind this right off. So here comes the fun part. We're gonna take our assembly and we're gonna fit it up in this hole to make sure that everything is good. Drop the bottom in first. Drop it in and then slide it up. And what you're looking for is that this lines up with the top. Now, because every single taillight fuel filler is hand built, we gotta make sure that our holes all line up. These look very, very close. We may have to open up these holes just a little bit more. But other than that, it looks really great. Before we install our assembly, let's go ahead and touch up all this bare metal with some paint. Now you're going to take the provided body clips and clip them on the inside. So before our tail light harness used to come through this cross member here, what we're going to do is, because our fuel filler is going to be right there, we're going to pass our wiring through this little opening right here. So you can go ahead and tape this. Before I do my final install, I would like to mock everything up. So I'm going to take my door and I'm going to very carefully install it into the opening. And it does go behind this flap. There, and it can rest there. My next step is to take the bucket and we're going to install it in the base. There. I can now take my screws and install them on the clips that we installed earlier. Now you can install the 4 screws, the 2 on this side, on those clips that we installed earlier. Not tight, just started. The same to the back here. You line up the door and install the screw. Now for a good alignment, make sure that your bucket is parallel with the box panel. I also like to make sure that this is level with the factory opening. You can test it a couple times, make sure that it all clears, which it does. This next step can be used on either stock taillights or aftermarket LED taillights. What we do have to do is, because these screws have a tapered head and need to sit flush on this door, on the other side, the screw head pokes through. So we need to go ahead and take our tail light housing and taper this. So let's go to our next station and we can do that. So all I'm going to use here is a 1/2-inch drill bit. I'm going to go ahead and drill my holes. Make sure you don't go through, but just enough to taper that head. Now we're back at the truck. We can go ahead and take the bucket that we just tapered and install it onto the door. After installing this door, I went ahead and I cycled through the action. I did notice that the bottom of this door is dragging a little bit on the box panel. The nice thing is we can just loosen off these 4 screws, slide this up just a little bit to get nice clearance between the top and the bottom. It no longer drags now. Now I'm going to install my tail light lens just to make sure that we are still good with our clearances. Now that my lens is on, I can go ahead and cycle through the action and see that I have excellent clearance along the box panel, inside radius here, and nothing is going to be hitting paint. When the taillight's closed, it fits as good as factory, no huge gaps. We provide you with this filler strip, and that stops debris and rocks and water from coming up from the bottom side. So go ahead and take this, install at the base. It should sit there while you take our fuel filler, install it into the opening. You're going to sandwich that with the provided screws. This here pocket is intended to have your tail lights run through this grommet here. This tab on this end and snaps into place. So now it's time to install our wiring harness. Because our door is now opening and we need more length on our wires, I went ahead and I went underneath the truck, I cut the wires, I'm going to feed them through this hole, and then we can reconnect them at the bottom. So a few things to assess under here. As you can see, I've extended my wires now for my tail light. I went ahead and did my ground right here, and then I just did some wire loom and some zip strips. Now when it comes to your fuel filler, a lot of you guys are going to ask, how do I fill it to my tank? That's all very dependent on the type of tank that you have, long box, short box. A good suggestion might be a person can go ahead and notch this cross member up, and that allows you to get a tube in here nice and high so you have a good grade going down to your fuel tank. So there you have it, a complete install of our Squarebody Taillight fuel filler. Just unthread the cap, fill it with gas, close it up, and you're off to the races. You can find this on our website, lsfab.com. Thanks for watching.
The past is gone. Now's the future. Now's the future. The past is gone. The past is gone. Now's the future. The past is gone. Now's the future. Now's the future. Now's the future.